Hi all. Thanks for joining this afternoon and taking some time to learn a little bit more about the Wisconsin Arts Board's Folk and Traditional Arts Apprenticeship Program. I'm Caitlin Burrell. I'm the Folk and Traditional Arts Coordinator here at the Arts Board, and I have the privilege in this position of managing the state's apprenticeship program. So this afternoon, I am going to take a little bit of time to just provide an overview of the apprenticeship program, including some eligibility details, and we'll walk through the application process, and I'll provide some application strategies and then answer any questions. So to get us started with an overview of the program, folk and traditional arts apprenticeships are designed to strengthen and encourage the continuity of Wisconsin's diverse cultural traditions by supporting exemplary traditional artists and culture bearers in passing their skills and knowledge on to talented apprentices. So when we talk about tradition bearers and traditional arts and traditional art forms, we're talking about artistic practices that are transmitted and engaged as part of the cultural life of a group of people whose members share often a common ethnicity, language, religion, occupation, recreational pursuit, or geographic region. So these are shared cultural communities that emerge and often support these traditional practices and traditions. Traditional arts are learned informally and passed on from one generation to the next by observation and imitation, or from one community member to another, and often express a shared aesthetic, heritage, or tradition of the community. And I'll provide some specific examples in the next slide. So a mentor artist who should be recognized as an exemplary practitioner of their art form within their cultural community. So they should be held in high regard by their peers for their skills, their knowledge, and their community-based practice. And apprentices should have some experience in the proposed art form or a related art form or tradition, and display motivation to enhance their skills and their cultural understanding of the art form. Apprenticeship awards are $3,500 paid to the mentor artists to cover their time, their expertise, supplies, travel, etc. And the application does include a budget portion where you will specify the estimated number of hours that you'll work with the apprentice, along with that supply, the supplies and any travel. And although your expenses will very likely exceed $3,500, given, you're compensating yourself for your time and expertise there, your request should total $3,500 in the application form. So to give you a sense of some of the art forms both that we've supported or that you might practice and might be considering applying under, you might practice a performance-based tradition. So Mexican folklorico dance or traditional Hawaiian dance and chant, an old-time musician, old-time fiddler, traditional Korean drumming style, Slovenian polka, so traditional music, traditional dance. We've supported storytelling, both African-American and Hmong storytelling apprenticeships. You might also practice more of a material arts or material craft form. So in terms of material tradition, we think about craft. Here's a photo of apprentice Ray Scannendor, who apprenticed with Black Ash Basket maker April Stone. And this was an apprenticeship that really spanned from the harvesting and pounding of the wood to the weaving practice, as a traditional Ojibwe craft. You might be a regalia maker or a ceremonial costuming tradition. You might also practice more of a visual tradition. So we think of Norwegian rose mauling. We've seen several rose mauling traditions being in the upper Midwest. And then foodways. I think that we often forget foodways, and we've supported very few foodways apprenticeships, but we would love to see more of those applications in the program. So reach out, please, if you have ideas or would like to propose an apprenticeship. Occupational traditions and techniques. I think this one is also often sort of overlooked, but we've had letter block, cutting and wood type production, and that was a really interesting occupational apprenticeship where the apprentice's father had actually worked at the Hamilton Wood Type Company, and the apprentice, continued on in that tradition and in that occupational practice and work with the Hamilton Wood Type Museum now. Blacksmithing or hand-forged hunting knives is another that we've seen. And you'll notice, as I sort of run through these examples, that these traditions can derive from anywhere in the world. This does not need to be an art form that necessarily originated in Wisconsin. As long as you are a resident and you are practicing this art form here in Wisconsin within your own cultural community, you are eligible to apply. So these are art forms, traditional art forms are often carried with immigrant and migrant community members as they establish themselves in new homes. And, the key piece is really that both the mentor artist and the apprentice should be committed to sustaining and advancing the art form in their shared cultural community. So in terms of eligibility, I mentioned Wisconsin residency for both the mentor artist and the apprentice. So the mentor must be over 18, and the apprentice, if they are under the age of 18, we will need some kind of parental or guardian's consent to their participation in the program, but they should not necessarily be immediate family members living under the same, in the same household as the mentor artist. And if there are some special circumstances that have affected cultural transmission, then please reach out and we're happy to discuss the situation and make necessary arrangements. As we mentioned, the mentor artist should be recognized as an exceptional and exemplary practitioner within their community, and the apprentice should have some prior experience with the art form. We don't, they certainly do not need to be experts themselves. That is not what the apprenticeship is designed for, but they should have some familiarity with the art form sort of within that cultural context. We do require that the mentor artist and apprentice keep an activity log over the course of the apprenticeship, and that they complete a public presentation in their community at the end of their working year. So in the application itself, you're going to include some ideas for this presentation, including, a potential location, dates, or a general timeline, and a plan for promoting the event. So please keep that in mind and maybe discuss that with your apprentice before you begin an application. And that presentation should really be appropriate to your art form. Maybe it's a small exhibit, maybe it's a performance or a workshop in a local community setting that is accessible to the public and sort of appropriate to the given art form. We let you all, make that decision on what is appropriate, but please just keep those pieces in mind. So evaluation criteria. Applications to the apprenticeship program will be reviewed based on the following sort of 6 criterion, and the first being traditionality of the art form within that cultural community. So what role does that tradition play in your life and in your community? And we do ask for a bit of sort of historical significance, information about the significance of the art form within, that cultural community. A little bit of information about your background in the art form and, including how, when, and from whom you learned your skills. And then we do ask you to describe any activities or involvement with the art form within your cultural community. Artistic quality of the mentor artist work. So this will be, primarily in the work sample piece, which I'll discuss a few slides here. And then, we ask for some information about your involvement, including any milestones or recognitions or awards or other accomplishments that you've achieved related to the art form. And this is just a reminder that, we see such a wide variety of art forms in the program, and we try our best to recruit panelists who have a lot of expertise in understanding of how tradition works in traditional art forms, significance of traditional art forms within community. But because they can't be experts in every art form that they might review, we do ask that you just really explicitly explain to them, present the art form as if they have no background, give them as much information and context that they need to adequately assess the application. and that includes sort of telling them about your own expertise and how you and the apprentice are prepared to participate in the program. So the third criterion here is a demonstrated commitment and skill of the proposed apprentice or apprentices. In the application form, there are questions specifically related to the apprentice's experience, why they wish to participate, describe their skill level within the tradition, what they're hoping to learn, and why they want to participate maybe with this particular mentor, and then how they plan to carry this art form tradition forward. There's also a work sample requirement for the apprentices, and like I said, I will touch on that piece in just a moment. The fourth piece is the shared membership of the mentor, artist, and the apprentices in a shared cultural community. So, be that ethnic or tribal or religious or occupational or regional, we ask in the application form to sort of pretty explicitly just describe that shared cultural community and what role the tradition plays in that community. The feasibility of the proposed activities is really sort of as evident in a clear work plan, a timeline, the logistics that you laid out in the application, and an appropriate budget. And there is a sort of describe your work plan section of the application. And then finally, urgency, and this really relates to endangered or marginalized art forms, endangered languages. This might relate to the age of the culture bearer or some other relevant circumstance that sort of relates to the urgency of passing on this knowledge and sustaining this art form. And the application timeline. So applications are open and have been open for several weeks, and they will be open for about another 4 weeks as of this week. So March 21st, 2024 is this year's application deadline. Once those applications are submitted, our panelists will begin the review process, and the panel will convene on Friday, April 26th to review those applications over Zoom, and that is a public meeting and will be accessible to live stream. And then May 10th, the Wisconsin Arts Board will meet to review the panel's recommendations and make their grant determinations. Then by mid-May to early June, we will have made the grant award announcements. And after July 1st, 2024 is when those apprenticeship activities may begin, and the first payment will be mailed upon receipt of a signed contract. And the apprenticeship can run, anywhere from the span of July 1 to May 30th, 2025, and we will really ask you to outline that in your application form, the timeline that you are proposing. So the application process, it's critical here to first register as an individual in our Smart Simple grant system, and that link to apply is both linked on our apprenticeship homepage and in the guidelines, and it is at wab.smartsimple.com. That is our online grant system. So you will go ahead and, if you are new to the system, go ahead and click register. You will register as an individual, and then the application will be visible there for you to begin as the sort of one grant opportunity listed on your homepage. So in the application, there are really 7 key pieces, and I've touched on many of these, but I'll just run through them quickly. The applicant information really includes, the information that you register with and the number of apprentices that you are applying with. Project details is, includes the apprenticeship start and end dates, and then the description of the traditional art form and its role both in your life and in your cultural community. The mentor artist tab and the apprentice tab, these are 2 separate tabs, really ask you to describe your work and your apprentice's work in this art form. Tell us a little more about your apprentices and your proposed work plan. The budget estimate, as I mentioned, should equal $3,500. And we say that the largest single item should be the fee paid to the mentor artist for their knowledge and their time and instruction. Work samples. Work samples are supporting material that gives evidence of the instructing artist and apprentice's skills and shows the artistic quality of the proposed apprenticeship. And we'll touch on that in just a minute. And then certification. This is really a sort of formality. You're saying that you certify that the representations made in the application are true and complete to the best of your knowledge. And it's sort of you will kind of scribble it there with your mouse to sign. The mentor artist will, who is the applicant in the program. And apprentices, we will, note if we need parental consent for those under 18. So for work samples, for craft and material artists, we say that work samples are required for all mentor and apprentices to the program, but for craft and material artists, you can upload, 5 to 10 high quality, up to 10 high quality images of recent work of both the mentor and the apprentice. And for performing artists, musicians and dancers and storytellers, up to 2 audio or video samples. And for dancers in particular, they must submit a video. And that's both for the mentor artist and for the apprentice. Once you have uploaded those work samples, please be sure to, you'll see the image that you've uploaded here. This properties button underneath the upload will allow you to add both a title, a year, and then just a brief description for each document that you've added. And this is just some additional contextual information that you can add to the sample here. But please do be sure to include this information, and also be sure to note, if there are multiple people featured, if it's an ensemble, just please note, who you are and any other information that's really relevant to reviewing the application. So some strategies and tips, and I touched on this before, but really just assume that the reviewer knows very little about the art form. We say consider discussing the art form's history, evolution, and kind of its current state of practice, and just assume that the reader knows very little about the art form. Although we pulled together very capable panelists from around the state or region, just to give them as much context as possible is going to be really important. And just don't assume that they know all there is to know about the art form. And if there is more than one apprentice applying or that you propose to work with, that number of apprentices should be appropriate to the art form, and the experience should reflect an opportunity that is deeper than a workshop or a class. If you're working with multiple apprentices, if you already work with students sort of in a similar format, you're really trying to make the case for why this apprenticeship is necessary, especially if there's more than one apprentice. And it might just be that it's more appropriate to the art form, but please do make that case. Please access technical assistance. I am here to help, here to answer any questions about the application, about potential art forms, about any other questions that you might have while completing the application. So please do reach out. And then if you are interested in applying via video recording, please reach out. This is an option that we've made available in the last couple of years, and really happy to make that available. Just be sure to reach out. We say 2 weeks ahead of the application deadline. And then if you are interested in serving as a panelist at some point, obviously not in the year that you're applying to mentor, but or apprentice, but if at some point you'd like to serve as a panelist, we often try to pull in at least one former artist within the program to serve as a review panelist, and we are always on the lookout for new panelists. And then I will just open it up for questions. Thank you all so much for joining. Mary Kay, I see your note here about the mentor. Yes, so the mentor artist is the person who, who will submit the application, who will register in the system, and they will be the applicant. But so no need, if you will be apprenticing, no need to register in the system necessarily. We've tried to figure out how to have the apprentice have a separate login and access the application. It just has not been feasible in the last couple of years that we've been working with this system, but we're still working on it. But for now, we say that the mentor is the applicant, and they they will have the login that they will, either share with you, or you can work together, or they can send you the questions. And then great question about work sample videos, but you're referring to there, the length of the videos. Is that for
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Great question. We say 2 to 3 minutes max. The review panelists have a lot of videos and work samples to review. So we typically tell them, no need to spend 10 minutes per video, but I think a couple of minutes is usually a good length for a work sample.
1 second.
For budgeting, what categories can be included? Materials, artistic fees, etc. Can we use some of the amount for transportation?
Hold on,
Yes, absolutely. Good question. So
Yes.
the budget will include your time, the instructing artist time, and that's where I said, start it. We usually say at least $30 an hour for your instructing time, and you can then kind of use that rate to determine how many hours you'll work together. And like I said, it will very likely exceed that $3,500, but it will be your time. It will be any materials necessary. And then transportation, I think that the application sort of auto calculates at 51 cents a mile, I think is the state rate at this point. And we might even get to up that a couple cents. But yes, transportation can certainly be included in there. Those are the key pieces though. And then I think we have a sort of any other option to include any other expenses that you'd like there. But your time, materials and supplies and materials and transportation are the key components of the budget. Good question.
So should I put sprinkles and stuff in the cookies? And then, yeah.
Other questions? How many awards are granted? Good question. So as I mentioned, we've received funding from the National Endowment for the Arts and the state. The National Endowment for the Arts funding is what funds this folk arts partnership funding is what funds the apprenticeship program. And we typically, we don't say, we don't like cap it at 10 apprenticeships a year and that's it. But we typically fund, I would say, the last handful of years, we'll see about 10 to 15 applications on average in a year, and we will fund closer to 10 of those, I would say. And sometimes that means all of them. There's 10 and the panel recommends that, we support all of them. We have done that in the past for sure. We've funded as many as, I want to say, 16 in a year, which is a ton. It really depends on the number of applications we see and the strength of the applications that we sort of put in front of the panel. But good question. And I wish I had a clearer, we cap it at 10, but it really differs year to year. Can the project be used as an event that's already programmed, or should I come up with a new exhibition or event? Good question. We've seen both. Typically we say, that this should be a new event or an event specific to the apprenticeship. But I think as long as, if there is an event that's happening and it's really relevant to the art form, and sometimes, you practice in community. So it's not that it's going to be an event with just the two of you necessarily. In some art forms, that is the case. Sometimes it's an exhibit of your work, of the two artists work together. Other times it makes more sense that it is, there are just more folks involved. And in that case, we say, as long as it's clear that this event is part of, or the apprenticeship piece is part of what's being showcased there or that night, that's fine. And I'm happy to talk, about specific ideas. But if you're working, I think in a lot of cases, if you're working with a gallery space, chances are that there are going to be other artists and art forms featured. So as long as there's some kind of signage that, this is really represents the work that you accomplished over the course of the apprenticeship, then that's no problem. You're typing. So Mary Kay, I'm guessing is that you with the question? Does it have to be free to the public? Good question. We say that it should be accessible to the public. Let me get back to you on that. That's a really good question. I think that I've been to like events at a Legion Hall where a polka band played, and I can't remember if there was a fee to enter in those cases. Yeah, I'm gonna jot that down and get back to you. Yeah, suggested donation. I don't think that that would be a problem in that case. Thank you. That's a good question. Is it possible to apply with a new apprentice? Sanju, yes, absolutely. So because you have mentored in the program before, if you were applying with the same apprentice, and we saw this last year, we had one of the mentor artists come back and say, a second year is necessary. We worked the whole first year and we got about this far. We focused so much on harvesting the black ash that we really didn't even get into the weaving piece because all of that traditional knowledge is key to the art form. So in that case, we'd say if you're applying with the same apprentice, you really just need to make a case for why another year is necessary. But if you're applying with a new apprentice, yes, absolutely, we'd welcome that. Again, it's just making the case for why this apprentice and now why this apprentice. So yes, I would encourage you to consider applying with a new apprentice if you have someone in mind. Other questions? Like I said, I'm very reachable. My contact information is here. Give me a call anytime, send me an email if you'd like to set up a time to chat. Yeah, happy to answer any other questions that come up, but I think that should give you a good jumping off point for the application. And like I said, the questions, if you haven't yet registered in the system, if you're on the Folk and Traditional Arts Apprenticeship program of our website, the questions are linked at the bottom if you'd like to, look through those before you begin or before you register in the system. And I think that's the gist of it. But please do reach out. Any other questions? Thank you all for making time for this, and just be in touch.